Today's Friday, September 26th, 2014, and I'm sitting speaking with Garza and Herman Vasquez. Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Al and Herman, tell me about when you first met each other. What do you remember?
Well, I remember meeting Al. It was in I would say probably the middle 70s. And he was in Overfelt. He was a teacher at Overfelt. And I met him specifically with Jose Martinez.
And what were you doing?
I was in Operation Ser, working for Jose.
How old were you?
Oh my goodness. I was probably about 34.
And what year was this?
I would say probably 70.
1970?
Al was not in the council yet.
67.
Something like that.
67.
What do you remember, Al?
It was about 1967. That's when I was at Overfelt. At that time, I was a teacher, credentialed teacher, but I, along with Carlos Molina and an African-American named General Owens, we were the initial homeschool liaison counselors for the school district working at Overfelt. That was an organization, a project that got started and funded by the California Department of Education with the Eastside Union High School District in order to deal with the issue between African Americans and Mexican American kids, Chicano kids. I was already, at those days, I was already a member of CSO, Community Service Organization, San Jose Maine chapter, the American GI Forum, San Jose chapter, and I was the president of MAPA, the Mexican American Political Association.
What year was this?
But this was 1967, 30 years old.
Go ahead, you were going to say something else.
But I had already been a member of those community organizations for about 2 years. And as I said, in 1967, my primary duty was to work with delinquents and their parents, not just the student, but deal with the parents. It was an innovative program. Originally, this program started in Los Angeles, and we went down for that summer of '67. We went down to learn how it started, what was their primary function, etc., and we brought the concept to San Jose. And so I was involved in the community too, because what Herman was talking about is Operation SARE was a project of the American GI Forum. And it was a manpower training. And that was the basic concept, but actually also it offered basic education. And I became involved with SARE in the effort to set up basic English and some basic math programs for the incoming trainee students. And I met Herman, among others, who were working in the project with the students, with the trainees, if you will. And I continued to work for a few more years as a community liaison for the school district.
Who was your supervisor at the time?
At the time was the principal, Mr. Taylor at Overfelt, and the vice principal, Mr. Lundstedt. But for district-wide, up at the district office, you could say the director was Albert Mendizabo. Unfortunately, he's passed away.
Who was the superintendent of the school district?
Frank Friscalini.
Herman, so tell me about your job at SEB.
I was hired and I worked for Operation Set in 1971. That's when I first started. And I was a counselor / job developer. We were on 2nd Street, and it was a small program at that time. And my job was, as a counselor, was to, if they arrived late, I would keep a record of that with the teacher. Those that didn't arrive, then I would do home follow-up. I would go actually to their home and knock on the door. Why aren't you at school? Why aren't you at Operation Set? So that's what I do. On the job development side would be those that were finishing or about to finish the class and ready to go to work. Then I would contact employers, visit employers, look in the newspapers, anywhere where I can feel that entry-level positions for the trainees. That's what I would do.
Do you know where the money came from for SER? Was it what kind of a program? Who paid for it?
They had Operation SET as a national program. They're still around, and it would come from the headquarters of Operation SET. At that time, it wasn't in Texas. It was, I think, back east somewhere. And then eventually it went to Texas. And then so that's where the money would come from.
Besides working at SEB, what community organizations did you go out to?
I went out to quite a few. I don't remember all the names, but that was part of the community outreach. So I went to a lot of school board meetings, small little community meetings. So there was a lot of meetings that I used to go to, and I was very involved. And being new in San Jose, I wanted to know what was going on.
So tell me the names of any of these groups you remember.
Well, one of them that I was, La Confederación del Raza Unida, of course, I was a member of that, and I was appointed to one of the committees there, to sit in the committee so I could know more about La Confederación. That was one of them. The other one that I really remember, that was later on but it was still in the 70s, was Jose Vasquez. He had a little group, and eventually that group came to be known as the Chicano Employment Committee.
What did they do?
It was, we used to meet right there on Santa Clara. It was a Safeway Market before, and then it became EDD with Chavez, I forget his name, first name. We used to meet there. What it was, getting jobs for people. Jose Vasquez would have flyers of the county offering positions, open positions. The city had open positions. We would just meet. It was a round table kind of meeting.
Did you attend any of these same organizations, Al?
Yeah, some of them, particularly the Chicano Employment Committee meeting. That was part of the political process going on because one of the main drives was to employ Chicano people, Mexican Americanos, Latinos, whatever you want to call it. But in those days, it was primarily focusing on the Chicano movement. And so I used to attend those meetings. Jose Vasquez was also a member of MAPA at that time, and part of the effort by the Chicano Employment Committee and other organizations, which MAPA and CSO and the GI Forum supported, by GI Forum not being quote-unquote a political organization, but a veterans organization, was not an official member, but the members did participate. And that was, we would picket certain jobs. We picketed, for example, the city of San Jose's construction of the community theater, the Center for the Performing Arts. Many of the members, see, that's another thing too. Chicanos in those days, like Herman, we were members of various organizations at the same time. Primarily, the basic goal was the improvement, the betterment of the Chicano youth coming up. And also, like CSO, with the more elderly people getting employment. It came to the point that even some Chicano adults that we were picketing, we even got arrested. I didn't, but I know members like Jose Martinez. I did get escorted out of City Hall, but that's another story. The thing is that one of the other jobs or institutions that we picketed. Basically, through the Manpower Training Program, we have affiliations with national people who would let us know what was going on. And at one time, the San Jose Post Office for the city of San Jose, already in the hundreds of thousands of citizens, had 37 Latino employees, mailmen as they were called in those days. To see a woman as a mail carrier was really not very common. But in any case, remember we used to picket the post office, the main post office at First Street and other branches at 12 o'clock noon. But that was that involved many members of the various organizations, including the Confederación de la Raza Unida. And from the Confederación de la Raza Unida also was born La Raza Roundtable, which was a meeting once a month of all the organizations. And in fact, I think it was one of the first movements or efforts that involved Latino women, Mexican women, Chicano women. And that was, we invited them to come and participate, and obviously we already had a few members in MAPA, and in CSO there were several. The CSO is a community service organization. But there were other efforts going on, as Herman has said, in terms of people involved who were members of various groups all at one time. The main goal was the betterment of the Chicano community.
Can you tell me a little more about these people who got arrested along the way?
Oh, well, the cops were sent out to particularly the community, the Center for the Performing Arts over on Almaden Avenue in San Jose, and some of our picketers got in front of bulldozers and graders and some of the trucks that were coming in to pick up the dirt to take it out. And we wanted to meet with a contractor, and they would not meet with our people, so some of our members that were picketing stood right in front of the big tractor and stopped them. And that was long before you saw any Chinese guy standing in front of a tank. We had Chicanos that were standing in front of bulldozers, and they were coming, and they did not flinch. And the bulldozers had to stop, and the trucks. But eventually, the city of San Jose, well, the police were called, and they had to come in and remove these people that were laying down in front of the trucks.
Do either of you remember the names of any of those people?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Jose Martinez, Ed Mercado, Max Rees,
Max Rees, I don't know if Ibarra was Jackie Ibarra. I remember all those names.
Any women out there?
Yeah, well, you had Ernestina Garcia, you had Sophie Mendoza, Trevino, you had Fran, you had Rachel, Silvia. There's quite a few women. They were involved, very, very much involved.
Herman, Al talked about there were numerous Latino organizations. Did they all get along?
At that time, what I saw that, we were organizing, we were new at organizing. It was something, with La Causa was going very strong. And there was arguments, there was disagreements, there was a lot of dissension, but we managed to get things done. We managed to go to City Hall that we had to. We picked for Cesar Chavez. There was a lot of things going on at that time. San Jose State had the students involved there, and they had the brown berets, the black berets, and it was just a lot going on. And I viewed that as, even though with all the infighting among our people, among the Chicanos, it was good. It was good because we were fighting for issues that meant a lot to us, and we were meeting with the chief of police at that time. I mean, there was a lot of meetings that were going on. There's just too numerous to mention, and I was out there. I mean, I was working and getting involved in the community, and I enjoyed it a lot. It was a lot of learning. We learned a lot.
You mentioned brown berets and black berets. Can you tell me more about them?
Well, I
and
wasn't.
Who they were?
Well, the
specific
brown berets,
individuals?
I believe, that started in Los Angeles. If I remember right. The black berets, according to Sal Candelaria, which he's no longer around, and that's when I went to a couple of his meetings, and it was very, very strong. The black berets were very, very strong, and they respected the brown berets, but they felt that the brown berets wasn't really articulating the issues in the community, the way they should have. They were strong in Los Angeles, but not here in San Jose. It was the black berets.
Do you remember the names of any leaders? You mentioned Sal Candelaria. Who was he?
Sal Candelaria was the chair of the Black Berets, Las Buenas Negras, and of course there was others that were there. I can't remember all the names, but there were almost all the meetings that you went, whether it was City Hall or the county or the community, they had their members present there. I mean, their presence was very strong.
Do you remember anything about these brown beret, black beret groups?
No, I remember their existence of black berets here, not so much of brown berets. I knew the members. In fact, I had occasion to be face-to-face with people like Sal Candelaria and Jesse Dominguez and others, because as the homeschool counselors at Overfelt, they were involved with some of our students, and of course, I've never been a supporter of walking out of schools. To the contrary, I think the more schooling that we can get. But what's significant is in what direction were we educating our students. Not so much, civil rights and pulling them out of the school. That was easy. Kids wanted to leave the school. There's no trick. But that was my initial confrontation with people like Sal and the Black Berets. Different philosophies, same goal really in the long run, which was the improvement and betterment of La Raza. But along with, as Herman has said, the differences of opinion and priorities with many groups, there arose the need for a more cohesive manner of talking with one another and with one another instead of to one another. And therefore, arose the creation of the Confederación de la Raza Unida was one of the initial steps to bring all these varied organizations, the social clubs, the education organizations of the colleges and the schools, and also the community, and some of the union members, because there were a lot of Chicanos in unions, but they had no power. They just took their money. And so the La Raza Roundtable was formed. There was a La Raza, today there's La Raza Roundtable, but in those days it was the Confederación de la Raza Unida Roundtable. La Confederación de la Raza Roundtable. And that's to be distinguished from La Raza Roundtable today. In terms of volume of activity, the different members originally started to come together, including even one or two of the 7 or 8 Chicano policemen we had in this city, where we had 600-700 police officers.
You said there were 6 or 7 Latino policemen. Who are some of these men?
Well, interestingly enough, one of the leaders of the American GI Forum and Operation SER for the GI Forum because SER was a subsidiary of the American GI Forum, was Daniel Campos. And Dan Campos eventually became a sergeant and then a lieutenant later on in life. And then also there was Ike Hernandez. I was just recalled about Ike's brother Zeke, which I did not know Zeke very well. But there were two Vasquez brothers, no relation to Herman. They were also involved in the American GI Forum. Those are some of the police officers. At that time, probably the highest ranking one was Ike, who was a sergeant. And later on, he also became a lieutenant. And they were involved in the GI Forum. The only one that became a MAPA member, I think, if I remember correctly, was Dan Campos.
How'd the community feel about these Latino cops?
I don't know that the community knew that they were Chicano cops, Latino cops. They were not really that distinguished. See, you have to understand that in those days, too, there were a lot of social organizations. Comité de la Raza, or la Comisión Honorífica. They were social. Those are the people that promoted the parade, 5 de Mayo and 16 de Septiembre, and didn't do very much else. In fact, later on, when MAPA, GI Forum, CSO, and other like CAP, the Community Alert Patrol, there were many of those people who were used to counter the movement by getting their opinion that these were hooligans and these were people who didn't care about being illegal, doing illegal actions, which was not true, but they were used. And little by little, these type of individuals were replaced in San Jose by people more in tune with the coming need to improve our social and our employment and educational status.
What was the relations between the San Jose police in general and the Mexican community?
Well, I think it's basically, at best, it was confrontational. There was little or no involvement. I mean, it took people like Luco Arrubias, who was hired as a patrolman, and who, by the way, ended up being hired by the Eastside High School District along with 2 or 3 other officers to patrol the school Overfelt. Overfelt was the hotbed. That was the main problem between the African American and the Latino students. And so there were a lot of problems on the exterior. And Luco Rubias eventually rose to sergeant and lieutenant and then became the chief of police in San Jose, the first Latino police chief, at least that I can remember. But in terms of your question, the relationship between the Latino community or Hispanic, Chicano community and the cops, it was at best confrontational.
I asked Al to describe the relationship between the Mexican community and the police department. What do you remember?
Terrible. It was real terrible. At that time, they had a height to become a police officer. We met many times with Chief Murphy at that time, and we tried to get Latinos into the police department, but because of the height requirement that they had, we couldn't get them in.
How tall did you need to be?
You needed to be, I believe it was 5'9". I believe that's what it was. And we finally broke that. With many community meetings. Jack Brito was involved. I was involved. There was many other people. Jose Vasquez was involved. It was just a lot of people involved. Yes. The Chicano Employment Committee was the one that was very instrumental. As far as the Chicano Employment Committee, Jose Vasquez was the first chair, and we used to meet where the I think now is the Mexican Heritage. It was first Safeway, and then it was EDD took that over with Chavez. I forget his first name. He was there. Then that's where we used to meet. Then I was the check-in chairperson, and then we moved the meetings from there. We moved up to Maxa. That's when Jose Villa and Brito were running the Maxa there, and everything took place there in terms of the community. It was a very, very good organization.
Where was Maxa located?
I was in Julian Street. Julian, and I think it was 2nd Street. So we had a lot of issues were discussed there. We had committees. We had the county committee with Frank Escobar was the chair of that committee. So anything that took place in the county, Frank was the chairperson that would bring issues to us that we needed to look into. And the city was another one.
Frank was the liaison between the county and Maxa and the Chicano Employment Committee and the Confederación and everything else. A role that later on got filled by Bob Escobar for the city of San Jose, working for the city. But the issue about height and weight and capacity to carry, those regulations were not thrown out until the first Mexican American got on the San Jose City Council.